I started to realize we do things a little differently and we need to set our goats up for success. Every winter, we have this struggle with our baby goats. A lot of folks, we included, we breed or bred our goats at the end of summer, like deer and everything else. But if you do the math on that, you end up having babies around Christmas, January, February, somewhere in there. Well, that's a problem because that's also the coldest time of year. And so one of the things that we have started thinking about and doing was to switch that from the coldest time of year to actually breeding when it's cold and then breeding again in the spring. Let me explain. We've broken our dairy goat herd into two groups. We call them the winter breeders and the spring breeders. And what that does is it gives us baby goats that are born, that are bred, let's say around November, somewhere between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Then we have another set of goats that we breed and they are bred in spring. We'll call it like May, okay? Somewhere right around there. And they will give birth at the end of summer. That ends up giving us year-round goat milk. By having goats bred in winter and in spring, we end up having two sets of goats born during the year, which means we have overlapping milk. That's important because if we want to have dairy year-round with goats, if we breed them all at the same time, there's going to be a couple months there that we're not going to have as much milk while they start to wane off right before they are bred again. We have decided to do it twice a year. The first time we tried to breed like we normally do at like the end of summer, and then again we bred at the end of winter. Well, one thing happened. We still had the same issue of baby goats having a hard time dealing with the cold in like February, January, that kind of period. While we didn't have a mortality issue, it was just hard on them. You end up coming out, you're always making sure they're warm, you're worrying about them, making sure everything's locked down, got a heat lamp going, all those kind of things. Well, we decided last year to breed what I would consider off-season, which for some of you may be on-season. And we bred at the end of winter, and we ended up with great healthy babies in the middle of summer. We were so happy with it, and I told my wife, I'm like, why did we just do that to begin with? Why were we breeding for Christmas babies? Well, I know why we were breeding for Christmas babies. It's because that's what we'd been told by other people who had goats. That's what they did. Well, the difference between us and other folks is we like to keep our goats on pasture all year round. Now, our dairy goats, they do come back to a barn and they stay in a barn in the winter at night. But during the day, well, they're out on the hillside like you're seeing them now, as well as other pastures that we put them in. And I talk about setting animals up for success, kids up for success, myself up for success all the time. It's one of the things that I kind of preach. I need to do the same thing for my dairy goats. And while the conventional wisdom, the conventional things that I had been told were great, they didn't actually work for us. I do it with my cows, I do it with other animals. I just didn't think about doing it with my dairy goats. Why? I think it's just one of those things that once you have a piece of knowledge that you accept as fact or you accept as the status quo, it's really hard to rethink that piece of knowledge. It's like the old story about the daughter who asked the mom, why do you cut the ends off the ham? And she goes, because my mom did it. They go and ask grandma, why do you cut the ends off the hams? Because I had a small pan. That kind of thing. This year, I'm setting my goats up for success because we are going to breed right now. This is right before Christmas. We are actually going to be bringing a buck over in a minute. We're going to separate out 3 of our does and put them in a separate area from the rest of our does. And then we'll breed again at the end of spring. And that breeding at the end of spring will allow us to then have babies that are born closer to fall. But they'll be healthy, really healthy by the time we get into winter. And so going through the year, we'll end up having a consistent supply of milk as well as very healthy babies that don't need a lot of babying when it comes to dealing with the weather. We are going to adjust what we're doing from here on out. Let's go figure out which buck we're going to bring over. But before we do that, let's separate a few of these does out. I'm going to tell you who we're going to separate out right now. Let's look at my list because I have a list in my notes specifically for dairy goats. It's one of the things I did a couple years ago just to help me keep track of what I was doing, who I was doing it with, all that kind of stuff, because it's one of those things that can be hard sometimes from year to year to remember exactly what you are doing. Okay, milk goats. We have winter milk, which is spring breeding, and then we have summer milk, which is fall breeding. Fall breeding, we have Trilly, Poppy, and Snow White. So we are gonna get Trilly Poppy and Snow White for our fall breeding, winter breeding. We're gonna get those guys and we're gonna bring them down. 2 goats here to pick from. We have Howie and we have Orion. And so we have to pick which one of these 2 we're gonna pick to breed. I think we're gonna do Howie right now. And the reason for doing Howie is he's got a little bit more color to him. He's a really great buck. We're gonna take him over. And then in the spring, when we run Sylvie, which is Colette's goat, we'll run Sylvie and we'll run Orion together, and they give really beautiful goats off because she is silver and he is this kind of blonde with blue eyes, and it's just beautiful. So why don't we throw a rope on Howie? If he's coming up to you, just be real careful with it, okay, buddy? Did you just do that in one fell swoop? Oh my Lord, he never lets me get that close to him. That is why you bring farm boys, because they see the animals every single day. Now, of course, if I was in here every day feeding them and letting them out, it'd be a different story. But the boys, they're around them all the time, and man, it speaks volumes. It really does. I kind of feel bad. But the reason why I'm not in here every day is because the dairy goats are not something that I deal with generally. It's Christine, and all these goats love Christine. All right. Let's go, Mr. Howie. Let's go see your girls. I wonder if he knows where he's going, Clint. Yeah. He seems pretty adamant. All right, well, I think we got our goats all set up for success. I can't imagine this going wrong. Are you trying to get part of the process there, buddy? I don't think he's gonna let you. I'm not helping you, buddy. This is too funny to watch. No. Just take it over his head, dude. You're gonna be so smelly, buddy. Just take it over his head. You can. Just grab the hook side and let go of the rope. Oh yeah, there's no knot in the rope. Just slide it through. There you go. You get it off. There you go. Hey, is that your sister's rope? So I wanted to come out and check on our goats that we are currently breeding and just to see how everybody's doing. What we've been doing to make sure everybody's happy is at night we actually shut this down and they're locked in here. And then in the morning, when we take the other goats down to the pasture that they graze in, we open these guys up and they can graze up the hillside as well as having as much hay as they want. That's kind of how we've been doing this. It works out pretty good. It means that our buck can't get to any of the does he's not supposed to. It also means that they get fresh browse going up the hillside. So far, we've never had somebody breed somebody they weren't supposed to. And that's really important because we register these guys. And so because they're registered, we really need to know who the dad is. And that's just kind of one of those things that with our other goats, I don't really worry about that. But because these guys are registered, we got to do it. And man, it is so smelly in here. I can't take it any longer. Let's get outside. Whew, need some fresh air. So what I was trying to say in there before I stopped being able to talk because of how strong that buck smells is with our other goats, it's not as important for me when it comes to trying to figure out who the dad is, who the mom is. There's so many moms and there's 3 bucks. And so there's going to be a good spread of who is the dad. It's not just going to be one of them. One of the reasons I know that's the case is because we have a Kiko buck and then we also have a Boar buck and then we have a cross buck. Well, this year will probably be the first year that the crossed buck bred anybody. We'll see about that. But the Boar buck and the Kiko buck, they have very different ears. And so we can pretty much tell whose kids are whose based off the ears. It's a really good way to tell, especially when you have Kiko moms that their babies come out and they have long floppy ears like a boar. Then you know, well, that was Cotton's baby. And so up here, we don't have that same ability to do it, as well as we register these guys. So we really do not want them breeding whoever willy-nilly. And so that's one of the reasons why at night we lock them in that stall and they get out when all the rest of the does are gone. All right, well, we're gonna get up to Herman's, check on Herman and get some work done up there. It's a beautiful day here.